to the Steelers by the Lake podcast. My name is James Strong, joined once again by my co-host Cody Tanner, all the way from West Virginia. Cody, how are you doing this fine Tuesday evening?
James, I'm doing fantastic. Yes, you heard it correct. If you didn't hear on the last episode about me moving, surprise, I moved again. First to Texas, and now I'm back up towards the north where, James, the grass was a little wet when I woke up this morning because of the dew, and I was like, this has been so long since I've seen this. So that was exciting this morning. But yeah, I did move to West Virginia, living with my girlfriend, although she's in Nashville for 3 more weeks, unfortunately, for an internship. But that's okay. I'm chilling here, hanging out with all the dogs. I have one, she has 4, and I have a cat. So it's been a good time. I'm tired of driving, James. That's how I'm doing. You asked how I was doing. I'm tired of driving.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
Drove straight from Texas in the U-Haul to West Virginia, then drove her back to Nashville and back in the same day. It's been a lot of driving. But James, how
long is that trip from Nashville to where you're at in West Virginia? How many hours is that?
It's about 6 hours.
Okay.
So it was like 12-hour drive. I didn't have to drive her all the way. I drove her to her car because she flew to Texas, left her car at work, which is right next to the airport, and then drove with me in the U-Haul, and then I drove her back to her car. So I saved about a half an hour. It's only about 5.5 hours, but still 11 hours yesterday.
Yeah.
I was in a car. Yeah, it's a great time. We did go to the new Buc-ee's. If you don't know what Buc-ee's is, it's a gas station. It's not a gas station. It's an experience. But
like a Sheetz kind of?
No. Oh, did you not know what Buc-ee's is?
No, they're not around here, man. So
I know they're not around there, but I know that you've traveled and done stuff. And okay, so Buc-ee's is like a Texas
not only
thing.
have I not been there, I thought it was pronounced Buc-ee's. So I have no, yeah, because of the spelling, man. There's
That's
no
fair.
K.
That's fair. No, it's a Buc-ee's, and it's a Texas thing originally. And I was in Texas for 10 months, and I'd never gone. My biological father always told me to go get the candied jalapenos, and I was like, okay, I'll go. The closest one was like 2 hours from me in Texas. Just not worth a drive, in my opinion, to go to a gas station. It's crazy. We went to the biggest one they just finished building in right off the Pigeon Forge exit in Tennessee. So if you ever get the chance to go, I can't remember the name of the actual town or exit. James, there's 120 gas pumps.
Holy crap.
120. The building I don't know if it's the building or the plot's like 4,700 square feet or 47,000 square feet.
Yeah.
It's wild. It was crazy. But yeah, so it was a good time. And then the U-Haul drive was about 24 hours. So 24, 11, 35 hours out of 48, I was in a car. It's actually exit 407 in Sevierville, Pigeon Forge, Gatlinburg exit.
Gatlinburg.
Yeah.
That sounds real familiar.
Yeah, I've been there.
Like maybe Jack Daniels is from that general area.
Yeah.
That's why that sounds familiar. Anyway, so let's get into some Steelers news. We got you guys caught up in our personal lives here.
How are you?
I'm doing good, man. How's
the knee?
It's up and down, mostly,
fair.
More days up and down, so we'll take it.
We'll take it, absolutely. All right, now you're right. Steelers news. Okay.
Okay, now Steelers news. Now we can get going on this. So latest stuff going on here. The Steelers had 3 players that hit their proven performance escalator, which means they have played more than, I want to say it's 66% of the snaps based off of their side of the football, whether it be an offensive player, defensive player, or, yes, a special teams player. So Alex Highsmith hit his, which means he goes all the way up to a $2.6 or $7 million contract this year. Same thing for Kevin Dotson, who, got the starting job the last couple of years. So he hit plenty of snaps for that.
Hope he enjoyed it while it lasted.
Yeah, right. Got just in time for that 4th season raise where he might play much. And then Braden Mann, the punter that we acquired from the New York Jets, being that was a claim off of waivers, he's still on his original contract, which means he qualifies for it. And his playing time also means he qualified for it. So all 3 of those guys would be making the same exact money this upcoming season, which is kind of crazy. You got a guy that was a borderline Pro Bowler, a guy that got replaced in his starting job, even though he was the starter the last couple of years.
Backup special teamer.
And a backup punter that might not even make the team. Pretty crazy to see the difference there. But
yeah,
I think both of us expect Alex Highsmith to see that extension pretty
100%. And James, you even mentioned it before the show. I'm not going to take your thunder from this. This even now bids the question of, do you trade Kevin Dotson? Do you try to move him with the depth we have at the offensive line now? What's the plan there? So this could play a factor in that. But I don't see it playing a big enough factor to where they would change their mind if they weren't going to change him to trading him. You know what I mean? But I think if they were going to trade him, they might be more amped to get that going a little bit.
Yeah, I think that they're not going to use this as a reason to trade him. They're not going to dump him for a 7th round pick.
Yeah.
But let's say training camp starts up and somebody's starting guard goes down. They don't have a good backup. They're willing to get rid of a 4th round pick or something, or maybe even a 5th round pick in order to acquire Kevin Dotson. Well, then, hey, maybe you consider that, knowing that you have a little bit of depth more than you've had in previous seasons, especially maybe if you see a little bit of progression out of some of the other backups. You know, maybe Spencer Anderson looks really good. Maybe even Kendrick Green gets it together and looks like a viable backup.
Yeah. Well, and let's be real. Depending on the team, depending on the player, depending on the situation, there's a chance Dotson could go for a 3rd. Quite frankly, if a team's desperate enough, there's a chance. But you get a 4th or 5th out of him and you see that, progression from one of the other guys, that's so worth it, in my opinion.
Yeah, especially if you were somehow able to get a 4th. You spent a 4th on him.
Yeah. Talk about an equal
trade. So you got 3 years of starting out of him, and then you get the 4th round pick back at the end and get to go pick somebody again. That's incredible if that were to happen.
Yeah.
So definitely keep your eyes open on that. And I don't know if this is going to factor into the decision between Braden Mann versus Presley Harvin III, but I have a feeling that if it's really close and they're both about the same, Pittsburgh's loyalty to Presley Harvin III and the fact that he's going to be about a 1/3 of the money will really push it in his direction.
Yep.
So I think that does make it a little more difficult for Braden Mann. He's really going to have to shine and really outduel Presley Harvin III to win that job.
Yeah, and he definitely knows that too.
Oh yeah.
James, before we get into this, I want to just explain what we're going to talk about today, because we didn't do that at the beginning. We are going to talk about what current Steelers we believe are future Hall of Famers and which ones kind of are on the border. And then we're also going to go over the free agents from next year, who we think we should keep, who we think we should get rid of, the price tag on them for this year, whether or not they're going to make the team this year. James, some of these guys we didn't even have on our 53-man roster. So really interesting to look at next year's free agents and how that will impact Pittsburgh's cap, Pittsburgh's draft, all the kinds of things that Pittsburgh's going to do. So, James, first off, let's talk current Steelers who could be future HOFers. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, definitely, man. So the question is, who do you think that is on the Steelers roster right now is going to end up in the Hall of Fame? So I think that the number one guy you got to start talking about with this is Cam Hayward. Cam's got 5, I believe, Pro Bowls under his belt now, and I think 3 first-team All-Pros. Cody's looking that up for me right now to make sure that I've got the correct facts going on there and not just those false ones that sometimes I make up. But I think that Cam's trending in the right direction. I think if he gets that 6th one, it's tough to tell him he can't go. And if he gets a 7th one, he's basically a shoo-in. You talking about Pro Bowls?
Pro Bowls, yeah. Does he have 5 right now?
He has 6 in a row.
6 right now. So that's even better than I thought.
Yeah,
to me,
6 in a row
is that magic number.
6 in a row with alternating first-team All-Pro as well.
Okay, so he's got 3 first-team All-Pros?
Yep.
Yeah, so that's he's good resume.
He's probably already in.
He's got a really good resume right now. 6 is usually enough to get people in. So I'm excited to see that. I really hope to see him get a couple more under his belt just to make it one of those things that when he is eligible, people say, oh, yeah, Cam Hayward, obviously he's going in. I don't want it to be a debate. So that's where I stand on that. What about you? You think he's first ballot right now, or you think he needs to win one or two more?
I think he needs to win at least one more to be a first ballot. I think he also needs to up the sack stats. He's sitting right now ranked at 125 all time. If he literally has a 10 sack season this year, James, it bumps him up into the top 100.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if he gets 10, he's
and what do you have, like 10 and a half last year?
Yeah.
So it's very doable.
Yeah. I mean, James Harrison is at 84 and a half, and we'll get to him later. But that's another guy that people talk about with the Hall of Fame. You have guys like Willie McGinnis at 86. You know, Cam Hayward at 78 and a half is on his way to break 100 potentially. If he breaks 100, James, say he ends his career at 100 sacks, which I don't think he's going to do. I think he'll get more. He's in the top 60 at that point. So,
yeah, and you got to look at how many guys in that list are defensive linemen too. Probably a good majority of those guys on the top sack list are defensive end or outside linebacker type guys.
Yep.
So yeah, usually you don't have too many guys that are playing in the interior almost their entire career with that many sacks. I mean, he has a chance of being the first one to the Steelers record. You know, the Steelers career record. He's in front of TJ Watt by 1 sack, I believe, right now.
And let me clarify. I was actually looking at the unofficial leaders since 1960. I believe the sack was officially made a stat in 82. And so,
sounds right.
And so that official leaderboard, he's actually sitting at 82 already. So, I mean, if he gets 10 this year, he's in the top 60. So again, it's not going to be hard for him to become a first ballot Hall of Famer in my eyes. Especially with the help he's getting on that defense. And with that being said, another guy we're going to talk about, TJ Watt. TJ Watt is already having himself an amazing career. I don't know where he's at on the leaderboard, but I can find out. He's
like
off.
a sack behind Cam. So, so just scroll down ever so slightly and you'll find TJ Watt.
Yeah. He's literally a sack behind. So he's at 84 already.
Yeah.
And he has 6 years less than Cam Hayward. Yeah, he's gonna rocket into that top probably 20 spots, if I'm being honest. His brother JJ Watt finished with 114 and a half, so, and was sitting at 24.
And what's TJ in his career so far? 4 Pro Bowls, I want to say.
TJ in his career is James. You keep getting off. He's at 5.
He's at 5 already.
5 and 3 All Pros.
Yeah. First team on all 3 of those.
Yep. And Defensive Player of the Year, twice? No, once.
Yeah, and set the sack record, or I should say, tied the sack record. I think it was Defensive Player of the Year once so far.
Once, yeah.
I don't think he has it twice. He should have had it twice.
Yep.
But yeah, this is another one that if his career ended right now, is he in the Hall of Fame? I say yes, because of the fact that he tied the sack record and the fact that he already has a Defensive Player of the Year on his resume. But the crazy thing is that it seems like he's a guy that could probably play at a high level for another 5 or 6 years,
easily.
Maybe more. A lot of outside linebackers play into their mid to late 30s.
Barring an injury, absolutely. 100%.
Yeah, and he already came back from something that could be a devastating injury and a torn pectoral muscle. A lot of guys don't really come back that well from that.
Yep. Yeah, I think he's I think he's a first ballot Hall of Famer at this point. He could retire tomorrow and be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Now, again, it's weird because I think that the people that vote would probably vote against him due to the fact that he would have such a short career and the fact that he's a Steeler player. Let's be real. We've been over this. The Hall of Fame voters are a little biased against Pittsburgh, but that's beside the point. But yeah, he broke the sack record, but we'll deal with that at another time. But 22 and a half sacks in a season was fantastic.
And he did it in 15 games.
Yeah, 15 games.
Because he missed 2 games that season.
Well, and he put up 5.5 sacks last year on 8 games. It's almost, it's almost a sack a game. He would have, had he been completely healthy and everything else, he would have gone completely off on that. And so that would have been fun to see. I'm excited to see what he's going to do this year because of all the help. The Cam Hayward, the Alex Highsmith, all the stuff. You can't always choose to double team TJ because someone else is going to come. Someone else is going to get through. So.
Yeah. And finally, in base defense, they're going to have a nose tackle that that is actually going to command some double teams from time to time. If you have a small center, Keanu Benton's going to beat him up, man. So I'm excited about Keanu Benton in the middle, man. Every time I see a picture of him and he's wearing just a t-shirt, I'm like, oh man, he's big. That gets me excited seeing how big and strong that dude is, knowing he's going to be in the middle of the defense now. But in the middle of the secondary is where Minkah Fitzpatrick has been roaming the last few years for Pittsburgh.
Mhm.
And Minkah is also strapping together Pro Bowl after Pro Bowl after Pro Bowl after Pro Bowl.
There's a gap in there, but yes, he's sitting at. It appears he's sitting at 5 with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all 5 and 5. He's 5 Pro Bowls, 5 first team All Pros.
So resume very similar to TJ Watts. Last year, he actually tied for the most interceptions in the entire NFL with how many he had. He and one other person, I believe, had 6 interceptions last year. So Minkah also putting together an incredible resume, also looking like he's nowhere even close to slowing down. And again, similar opinion from me is a couple bowls and you're not going to be able to even quantify the opposition of saying he shouldn't belong. It's going to be, oh yeah, he should go in and probably first ballot.
Yep.
So I love the direction of where he's going, the dominance, and the fact that people even there's a podcast I listen to that's a Dolphins guy and a Bills guy, and they break down players all the time, right? Draft prospects. They talk about teams and what they are right now. The Dolphins guy absolutely hated Minkah for the first couple of years that he was gone from Miami because of the fact that he left and he felt like he kind of powdered his way out. He now admits that he's the best safety in the league. So that says something for somebody that was jaded and absolutely hated Minkah because of the fact that he left his team and now still admits, okay, yeah, he is that good.
Yeah.
So I think that shows that there really isn't going to be anybody that's going to be able to say, no, Minkah shouldn't go to the Hall of Fame. Especially get a couple more, you're done.
Yeah, and especially if he puts up some more interceptions. I mean, if he's at 19 career interceptions now. If he happens to end his career and gets 13 more in that time frame somewhere, which is easily possible.
Yeah, he could do that in 2 years.
he passes Troy Polamalu.
Yeah.
Like it's crazy how that stat can get pretty broken and pretty up there.
Yeah, that's right about where Jack Ham and Jack Lambert are too. I want to say one of them's at 28, one of them's at 29. Like these guys had a lot of interceptions in their career, and I do believe that Minkah's got a good shot of getting up to 40 or more. You know, he's just one of those guys. He's always getting at least 4 or 5 picks, it seems, every year. So
yeah, and another guy that's getting picks pretty often, and is actually up there on the ratings right now. Already has more than Troy Polamalu, but it's a little bit different position at the cornerback room. Patrick Peterson. Now, again, this is a current Steelers player. He hasn't actually played a game in the black and gold yet, but he's still on the team. He's still a future Hall of Famer. It's a guy that's played in the league for what? He's been around since
at least 10 years, right?
It has to be. He was drafted in 2011, so yeah, it's been a good time. He was with
11 years.
2011, yeah, 11 years. Yeah, because he was drafted in 2011 by Arizona.
And he's got, I think, 8 Pro Bowls already.
1, 2, 3.
Yeah, I got the right number on that. The one guy that hasn't been with Pittsburgh.
8, but they were all at the beginning, rookie year and on, and then he hasn't had any Pro Bowls or anything in the past 4 years.
Yeah, but last year, didn't he have like 5 interceptions last year? He had a really solid. It was like 15 pass breakups and 5 picks or 4 picks. He put up some good numbers last year.
Yeah, 5 interceptions, 15 pass defended, which is almost his career high. His career high is 16. He had a great year last year. No fumbles or fumble recoveries, no stats there, no touchdowns, anything like that. But he also, I'm trying to see the other stat lines. He had 3 tackles for loss, no sacks. No safety. Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, and that's not what you ask him to do. You ask him to get his hands on the ball, and that's what he did, you know?
Yeah, 5 picks.
If he was on Pittsburgh last year, he'd have been number 2 in interceptions and right there with pass breakups. I want to say Cam Sutton was about the same spot, 14 or 15 PBUs last year. So, yeah, that as far as what Pittsburgh needs him to do, I'm really excited seeing what he has done as recently as last year. But his resume already screams Hall of Fame. So if he can continue and maybe put another 1 or 2 up there, it just makes it a little more obvious. It would be nice if he can do some as a Steeler, and then maybe he starts having the internal discussion about going in as a Steeler. I think he probably would want to go in as a Cardinal, being that most of his production was with Arizona.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's another guy that's gonna go to the Hall of Fame on the current roster. But my question to you, Cody, is outside of those 4 guys, is there anyone else on the roster right now that you think by the time their career is over, we're talking about this person also should be going into the Hall?
Oh, probably James, but I'm not gonna lie, you put me on the spot here. I'm trying to pull up some numbers to back up what I'm about to say.
Yeah.
Here we go. This is what I want right here. Is that it?
Who's the guy? Who are you leaning towards? We got some dead air right now.
Yeah, I know. I'm leaning towards, and it's gonna sound very, very bad. I'm just being honest with you. And people are gonna judge me, and I know that this is saying a lot, but Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett, given the right opportunity and the right situations, I believe can easily be a Hall of Fame quarterback. He's only played in 13 games. He started 12 of them. He has a 7-5 record, a 63% completion rating, which quite frankly, when you look at that number, and I'm trying to find the percentage, pass completion percentage, the top players he had a 63% completion rating in his rookie year, not even playing the whole time. When I talk about guys for their whole career, and obviously the career's longer, more time to make mistakes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Joe Montana, 63.2 career passing rating. Some guys that are already in. Brett Favre, 62%. Troy Aikman, 61.5%. You got guys that have been around. Eli Manning, 60.3%. I mean, even when you get into talking about, Steelers quarterbacks, I'm pretty sure that
that's probably a lot higher than what Terry Bradshaw was.
That's what I'm saying. I'm sure it's way higher. And there was another name that I wanted to talk about on here, but I don't see him. But anyways, I just think Kenny Pickett has a chance to really put some numbers up, and with the weapons they've given him, we talk about the 3, arguably 4 tight ends, if you include Connor Hayward, that can all catch the ball. You talk about George Pickens, Deontay Johnson, Calvin Austin the third, that we haven't even got a chance to see yet, but he's super speedy, super quick. Allen Robinson the third, who is I think an underrated player on the team right now. He has a lot of potential to put up some crazy numbers, and I'm just excited to see it happen. So that's a way too soon guess, but Kenny Pickett is one guy that I will absolutely say. There's another one, but I want to see if you say him first. So
I like your direction with that. And the thing that has me so encouraged about Kenny Pickett is that people look at what he did in his rookie season and they're like, yeah, well, he had 7 touchdowns and 9 interceptions, man. Well, 8 of those interceptions came before the bye. He only threw 1 interception in the last 9 games.
Yep.
To me, that shows so much progression and maturity throughout the season that if he continues on that path of progression that we saw in just the first 13 games of play in his professional career, it really is trending in the right direction, if you ask me. I'm thinking that this season we're going to see a TD to interception ratio from him that might be 3-1. And I'll be ecstatic with a 3-1 from Kenny this upcoming season. So I like where you're going with that. To me, the person that we should be looking at here, there's 2 of them that I really want to talk about. The first one I'm going to say is Pat Freiermuth. I think this year Pat Freiermuth overtakes Mark Andrews. I don't think he's going to overtake Travis Kelce. I think Travis is on a whole nother planet.
And probably George Kittle too.
Mark Andrews, on the other hand, has got to have his bullseye on because those 2 guys, unless one of the 2 of them unless they retire or get injured or something, that's who you have to surpass to get in the Pro Bowl. and you have to stack Pro Bowls to get into the Hall of Fame. I think this season is where we see Pat start getting in that 80-plus catches. I think we see him even flirt with double-digit touchdowns. And once he gets going, man, I don't see much slowing him down. And old age is going to start slowing down both Kelce and Andrews. I want to say Andrews came into the league as an older prospect, too. So he's a little older than people realize. But I think that's where we should be looking at on the offensive side of the ball other than Kenny Pickett. And on defense, for me, it's Alex Highsmith. Should have been a Pro Bowler last year, which would have been in his third season in the NFL. He is on people's radars now. If he has another season like he did last season, this upcoming season, I don't see how he doesn't go to the Pro Bowl. And if he can continue in that range of that 14.5 sacks with 5 forced fumbles, you're talking about a guy that you're not going to keep out of it. And again, he's young still. Give him that extension, I could see him easily ending up a Hall of Fame candidate at the end of his career as well. Again, got to stay healthy, got to make it into your early to mid 30s, still producing at a high level. But I see him having all the capability of doing so.
Yeah, 100%. I did want to look up a stat here just out of curiosity. So comparing the first 2 years between Mark Andrews and Pat Freiermuth, Mark Andrews in his first year had 50 targets for 34 receptions, 552 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Pat had 79 targets, 60 receptions for 497 yards, so less yards, and 7 touchdowns. So more touchdowns. And again, that was Ben's farewell year. Now, when I look at Mark Andrews in his second year, where he had, a young developing Lamar Jackson, it was his first Pro Bowl year for Mark Andrews. He has 3 on his career. This was his first in his second year. He had 98 targets for 64 receptions, 852 yards, and 10 touchdowns. Pat Freiermuth, with the rookie quarterback, all the stress going on with that and the injuries with, Mitch Trubisky, not knowing who's going to play, all the stuff. He had 98 targets, the exact same number of targets, 63 receptions, 1 less reception than he had, than Mark Andrews, 732 yards, so roughly 120 yards less. And then, unfortunately, only 2 touchdowns. Kenny Pickett, towards the end of the year, started getting in a very, very good rhythm with Pat Freiermuth. And I expect that to continue. I expect Kenny Pickett to realize what Ben realized when he had Heath Miller, that, hey, this guy's a big body, has good hands, and doesn't drop the ball. I expect Pat Freiermuth to have the most targets of his career this year. So I expect him to have more than 98 this year.
Yeah, and Travis Kelce's 33, so you figure that drop-off's got to start happening soon. Mark Andrews hits 28 years old in September, so he'll be 28 before the season starts.
Jeez.
So I think that, we're primed for a Pat Freiermuth takeover. Was Pat the other guy that you wanted to talk about? Did I hit on your guy?
Yep. It was Pat. I figured you want to talk about him because me and you were both big on our tight ends and all that stuff.
Yeah. Especially Penn State boys.
Yeah, Penn State boys for the win. So now with that being said, let's talk about the other guys. I almost skipped it.
Yeah. So the other topic we wanted to get into before we get into the free agents are what are the in-between guys, the guys that have already retired but aren't eligible for the Hall of Fame yet that should be able to get in. The short list that I came up with not really getting too in-depth with it, Big Ben, David DeCastro, Marquise Pouncey, all of whom have a very serious resume, all of whom I believe should go into the Hall of Fame. Not necessarily their first year of eligibility, but I think all of them should get in there within 3 to 5 years of eligibility.
Yeah, Big Ben will more than likely get in on year 1.
I hope so.
The 2 Super
I could
Bowl,
see it being year 2 though, just because of the anti-Steeler bias.
But the 2 Super Bowl victories and the leading the NFL in most 500-yard passing games should be enough on top of his well built-up resume to get him in on the first ballot. So I agree with you. I can't think of anyone other than those 3 guys, quite frankly. David DeCastro one of the best pulling guards I've ever watched in the NFL. And then Marquise Pouncey as well, phenomenal pulling center. Fierce, just a phenomenal play. And it's unfortunate how his career ended with the high snap and all that stuff in that Cleveland Browns playoff loss, unfortunately. But a great career for all three of those guys, and I expect all of them to be in the Hall of Fame. I think DeCastro might be year 2, although I think he has just as much a reason to be first ballot. I don't see Pouncey being a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I feel like it's just because interior guys, the centers and guards, they almost never go right away. They almost always have to wait. Even Alan Faneca had to wait a few years before he got in, even though he had more Pro Bowls and more All-Pros than guys like Steve Hutchinson and other people that went in front of him with similar eligibility. Better resume for Alan Faneca, and he still had to wait longer. So I would expect a similar treatment for them, but I would also expect them to get in at some point in time. I think that's where you kind of have to sit and wait. The next best resume after those guys is James Harrison. He's already eligible. Will Harrison get in? I don't know. It's kind of a bottleneck. I think he should. He's a defensive player of the year. He's
defensive player of the year, 5-time Pro Bowler. The freaking pick 6 in the Super Bowl, that was the longest. There's a lot of reasons that he should go in. Quite frankly.
But was it enough is what people are going to say. Was the whole amount of his body of work over his career enough? I think yes. But I think part of it too is going to be, is it a bottleneck because of him and Hines Ward trying to get in at the same time? Is it dividing voters?
Yeah.
Some voting for one, some voting for another. It might be one of them needs to get in for the other one to have a chance, kind of thing.
Yep, I agree. I'm really curious to see how that works out. We are going to talk briefly now about the free agents for next year. And I say briefly only because James and I are kind of on the same page here. There's not a lot of guys on this list that we're super worried about for next year, which is very interesting for the draft for who we're keeping and potentially who could even stay this year. So, James, do you want me just to go through this list completely real quick? Do you want to talk about price tag on them?
Let's do a couple of them at a time. I don't think we need to talk about the price tag. It's kind of a moot point on these guys. But let's talk 4 or 5 of them and then talk, say the names and then let's talk about how we feel about them.
Yeah, let's talk about defensive front guys. So you got Montravius Adams at the defensive tackle, will be a free agent next year. You have Braden Fehoko and then Armon Watts. That's kind of it. Defensive front, I'll also count outside linebackers, Marcus Golden and Alex Highsmith as well on this list. So
when we look at those guys, you've got 3 defensive linemen who at all. They're back to the roster guys, if you ask me. And then a couple outside linebackers who definitely needle. Alex Highsmith, both Cody and I are hoping that he gets a large long-term extension, give him a 4-year extension, whatever you want to do. Pay the man. Let's keep him and TJ Watt on the team together for as long as possible. Marcus Golden, hey, if you can get him back next year on a reasonable deal and he plays well this upcoming season, I'm in.
100%.
I'm in. Yeah. So to me, he's one of the few on this that I'm definitely interested in getting back next year. But it all depends on how this season goes, because if he plays too well, he's going to want a bigger deal from somebody else in the opportunity to start.
And if he plays like crap, we don't want him.
Yeah, that's it. He needs to walk that fine line and give us 3 or 4 sacks as a backup to where we want to get him back, but not enough that somebody wants him to start for.
And here's the reasoning for this. And again, some people, for anyone that's new to football, if you're listening, or I can't imagine you're new to football, but just kind of don't understand why you target specific players in free agency or draft or this or that. You don't have you have X number of picks in the draft, and you can only target that X number. You're always going to have Y number of needs. If you can get someone like Marcus Golden, who's going to come in and hopefully be a healthy rotational guy, give TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith a break, but still be productive and not be a weak link to where people can just target him over and over again and just bury us, whether it be on the run or a screen play or whatever. That's a guy. It gives you a stopper for a year, saying, hey, outside linebacker is not a concern for this year. Let's move on. Because you're always going to need, even if we sign Alex Highsmith to a long-term deal, sure, you got your 2 starters for long-term deals. They're set. Injuries happen. They need it. They need a rotation. They need breaks. Marcus Golden has the potential to really, really help us out in being that extra, you know, almost like a temporary. It's like a Band-Aid. Quite frankly, like you will need to address it sooner or later, but especially with his age. But that's a good guy to come in and hopefully help us out to not have to prioritize so many things when you only have Y number of draft picks and stuff like that. So.
Yeah. So I agree with you on that. He's at this stage of his career, he's a high quality backup, which Pittsburgh hasn't really had at the outside linebacker position. So we're happy to have him on the team. Moving from the outside linebackers and defensive linemen to inside linebackers, there's two of them on this group, Nick Kwiatkowski and Tanner Muse. Both of them were just signed in free agency. We haven't even seen them on the field. One has a better resume than the other, which would be Nick Kwiatkowski. Tanner Muse has basically been just special teamer so far in his career. So neither one moves the needle for me in any significant manner. This may change after the season. But also there's a chance that one of the two of these guys doesn't even make the 53-man roster. Just depends on how many middle linebackers Pittsburgh decides to keep this season.
Very true.
So we'll see. Right now, neither one taking too much more time on.
Yeah.
Let's get into the secondary now, Cody. You want to go safeties or you want to go corners first?
I think we just kind of go through. I think there's 5 guys on this list. So I'll just name them all. Shannon Sullivan, the cornerback who we've talked a lot about, potentially playing nickel, starting nickel potentially. Duke Dawson, another cornerback. You have Levi Wallace, who's arguably the second best corner on the team right now, outside of, we haven't seen the rookies play. And then you have the safety Miles Killebrew and the safety Elijah Riley. Cornerback room, I think
James Pierre is well on that list.
James Pierre, I apologize. I missed his name. I completely missed his name. I don't see his name anywhere on that list.
He's right in the middle after Gunnar Olszewski.
You are correct. I'm blind.
Yeah.
So you have 4 cornerbacks that are going to be out next year. You drafted 2 this year. There's more than likely a chance one of these guys stays. I think if Shannon Sullivan can come in and be a intricate part of nickel defense specifically, you have every reason to bring him back. Levi Wallace, I think, is going to be too big of a price tag. If the rookies play well enough that they can step up in those roles, I don't think it's worth, putting the price tag on Levi Wallace whenever you can get quality play out of somebody else. And then James Pierre, it's tough. He's a good gunner. Excuse me. He doesn't even, is he a gunner?
Yeah.
Okay.
He was a starting gunner with Miles Boykin.
Yeah.
Right.
I was thinking also about his pick against Denver 2 years ago that sealed the game, but I don't know. He's a hit or miss. James Pierre, you could probably find a quality replacement in the 7th round, 6th, 7th round of a draft. So the cornerbacks, I'm kind of up in the air on, and then safeties, James, unless you want to say something else about the corners.
No, to me, it's basically Levi Wallace of them on the back of the roster dudes. In Levi Wallace, again, it all depends on the development of Corey Trice. We expect to see Joey Porter Jr. as a starting corner, not necessarily week 1, but definitely by the end of the season.
Yep.
You still need a second starting corner. Is it going to be Patrick Peterson? Or are they going to be moving him more to the slot? If Patrick Peterson is the number 2 starting corner, well, you're not going to pay a third one. The whole reason of having Levi Wallace roster right now is that you don't have to push Joey Porter Jr. on the field right away.
Yep.
You want him to get some playing time, but you don't want him getting beat up by guys like Jamar Chase and these high-end wide receivers and then getting down in the dumps and losing his confidence. We need to make sure the man is developed properly. So I'm with you. Levi Wallace, I would be interested in next year if someone is not ready that we be ready for next season.
Yeah.
But the rest of them, unless they can find a niche role, like you said, Duke Dawson, Shannon Sullivan as nickel guys possibly. James Pierre, I think, is not for long on the roster. Yeah.
Nope. I agree.
Safeties, Elijah Riley and Miles Killebrew.
Elijah Riley is like the priority in my mind. Miles Killebrew had great 2 punt blocks, hasn't done anything since.
Or before.
Yeah, true. Fair.
Let's call it what it is. He did nothing before that. which is why he ended up in Pittsburgh. And we were saying, is he a linebacker? Is he a safety? We don't even know. It turns out his best role is a special teamer. And last year as a special teamer, he didn't do much.
No. So
the year before was the 2-block season. And how long do you give a guy a roster spot based off of something he did 2 years previous?
Yeah, not very long, quite frankly, in my opinion. Speaking of special teamers, let's go ahead and knock that out of the park. Braden Mann, the punter, will be a free agent next year if we even keep him. Again, 100% of this depends on the Presley Harvin versus Sam Min training camp. Obviously, if Braden Mann wins the starting job, you bring him back. But again, we already went over that earlier. He has to really, really shine in order to do that. Looking at the offensive side of the ball, going over offensive line first, there's 2 guys on this list, Kevin Dotson and LaRaven Clark. Kevin Dotson, again, we've already talked about. He's going to be getting that big pay boost this year. Is it worth bringing him back? And then on top of that, he's bumping down in the roster positions because we're getting quality guys in that are able to bump him off. And then LaRaven Clark probably isn't even going to make the team. So that's where we're at with that.
So I think both those guys are gone next season. You're probably not even going to make an effort back unless LaRaven Clark can somehow get that number 4 offensive tackle job and then is interested in coming back for a league minimum contract again. Then there's a possibility there, but I don't see any scenario in which Kevin Dotson is a Steeler in 2024.
Yeah, I agree. So now we have tight end, two wide receivers, and a quarterback left. Gunnar Olszewski and Miles Boykin being the 2 wide receivers, Zach Gentry being the tight end, and Mason Rudolph being the quarterback. Now, James, do you want to talk first on this? Because I can be really quick about my opinions on this situation, so I might let you go first.
Yep. Yeah, quarterback, very, very cut and dry on this, man. If Mason comes back on a minimum third string quarterback again in 2024, I'm okay with it. I don't want to pay him a penny more than that. Moving right along, Gunnar Olszewski. This is the only time I'm going to really talk about money on these guys. $2 million for Gunnar Olszewski to fumble some punts. I'm out. I don't even want him on the roster this upcoming season, let alone the season after. Miles Boykin, I'm okay with him coming back on a minimum deal again as he is right now. Exceptional gunner. That's why Cody's doing bang bang with his fingers right now. He's an exceptional gunner on special teams. As a wide receiver, he doesn't really offer too much, but when you're talking about the number 5 wide receiver, you're not necessarily asking him to do that much. Sometimes it's more special teams than it is on your original position. So I'm okay with him back on a minimum deal. And then your last guy, Zach Gentry. Man, Zach's done his job. He's big, he's strong. As Cody is describing, he's very tall as well. It's 6'8". But do you pay a number 3 tight end or do you just draft another guy? Zach, I think, is going to want the opportunity for more playing time than what he's going to get this upcoming season because I don't see him getting on the field too often this upcoming season. They just don't use 3 tight ends.
I don't have to say anything else about that. Quite frankly, I think you hit all the nails that I was going to hit. The only thing that I will say about Gentry specifically is I think there is actually a chance. I know we see, if you're watching on YouTube, you see my dog. You see my dog
so stinking cute.
Having the zoomies in the background, getting some bones. Get your bone. Tail wagging. Zach Gentry, quite frankly, has, in my opinion, I don't want this to happen. I think he has a chance of, if a team has a tight end go down, we talk about Kevin Dotson, there's a chance that Zach Gentry's on the trade block. When you think about Connor Hayward's ability to play tight end as well, and then Darnell Washington, whether he's a hit or miss in the draft, 3rd round pick that we got this past year, and then you got your number 1, you got your career long tight end with Pat Freiermuth. So I don't think it'll happen, but there's some crazy chance that team loses a really big tight end or something, and they happen to be like, hey, what would you take? What would we need to give you for Zach Gentry? Because people know we're not trading the guy we just drafted, and people know we're not trading Pat Freiermuth. So Zach Gentry could potentially be on the trade block this year. So
I can see that, man. That makes sense to me. He proved that he's a good number 2 tight end. The only reason Pittsburgh did a move there was because, honestly, Darnell Washington could be a massive upgrade.
Yeah. I mean, they were talking about him going in the 1st round before,
at the end of the 1st, they were expecting. So, hey, we got him in the 3rd. Looks like a tremendous pick. We'll see how that pans out for us, but it does move the priority of Zach Gentry down some.
Yeah. So with that being said, all said and done, that's going to end this show. We thank you guys so much for listening or watching. If you're on YouTube, please make sure to give those 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts. If you get a chance to give those, we will give you guys a shout out. We check for those every week before we go live to make sure we talk about you guys if you share anything. And again, be sure to like and follow on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Subscribe and ring the bell. It's free, folks. And until next time, this is your host, James and Cody, signing off.
Peace.
So James, if you go to when you go to training camp this year, who do you want to get an autograph from?
Wow, that's a good question, man.
Right.
Darnell Washington.
That's fair. I'm gonna throw you off with mine.
Who's that?
Mike Tomlin.
Good luck. That's a long line, man.
Yeah. Hey, listen, if you guys are going to be at the training camp this year or a game, hit us up. Let us know if we happen to be going the same time you're going. We'll make sure to meet you.
I just want to see how much bigger than my hands are Darnell Washington's. I think they're like 8 inches longer per finger.
Probably. That's wild behavior, James.
Think about that.
Think about it.